Hey there, welcome to the show. Today I have a very special guest with me, Christina Walsh, a New Orleans mama of two, physical therapist, published researcher, and co-founder of Tighten Your Tinkler. Christina knows what it's like to live with pelvic floor issues and understands the power of transforming pain into purpose. Love that. She helps women with pelvic floor issues and prolapse find healing without kegels or invasive devices. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you for having me, Claudia. I love your podcast and all that you do to support women in our stage of life.
Yes, it's a fun stage of life.
It's an adventure.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it certainly is. You and your business partner, Jen, are known as the Tinkler ladies, correct?
Yes, so we've been called the Tinkler duo, the Tinkler ladies. Absolutely. And we're not that cutesy and clever. We are like total nerds for what we do and the science and the healing and the personal journey. And one of our clients helped us name the business to help keep it memorable and clever. And
Yeah, I love it. It certainly is memorable. So, and you've helped a lot of women, it seems, to reduce pelvic floor issues. So, I'm really excited to have you here because I do believe that my community will benefit from your wisdom. So, since none of us were really taught about our bodies, can you first just give us an overview of what exactly is the pelvic floor? What does it encompass?
absolutely, it's a perfect place to start. And as you said, I mean, there's data out there about women being interviewed in gynecologists' offices and not knowing how many holes we have. So, I mean, that's how extreme it is. So if you've ever even found yourself there, you're not alone. I hope you haven't. Um, but the pelvic floor, we like to say it's not a magical unicorn and it's not something to be scared of. Like, sometimes we think of it as something, yeah, we don't know anything about, but it doesn't have to be scary. It really is just a simple sling of muscles that, it has a glamorous slash unglamorous job of holding our guts in from below. Right. So I had one person tell me, oh, it's responsible for the three P's: peeing, pooping, and penetration. Absolutely. All the business of the pelvic floor. And it's just a bowl or sling of muscles that goes from the front of the pelvis to the back and then out to the side to kind of connect with some of the deep hip musculature as well. So it's all soft tissue down there.
Okay. So if a woman has a weak pelvic floor, like what are the symptoms that are associated with that? And I think it's a pretty long list.
It actually is. And this is one thing that we love to educate on because it's very validating when you hear, Western medicine traditionally loves to put things in tiny little separate buckets. And when you feel it in your body, you intuitively know this stuff is all connected. And so I hope that you hear a lot of validation as you hear this list. And also don't hear, I have to check all these boxes in order for something to be wrong or be worth fixing. This is just an exhaustive list of how this can present. But for every woman, it is a different nuance of a combination of some of this that tells you my pelvic floor and core are not in good working order anymore. And so that list can include of certainly, we all think of pee leaks, right? That's the first one that pops to mind, but that can be the laughing, coughing, sneezing, jumping kind, or it can be the gotta go now, can't make it in time leaks. Also, getting up at night to pee. I promise it's not normal and you don't have to live with it. That is like mind blowing to so many women. Peeing more than 10 times a day also is not normal. No matter how much water you drink, our bladders were meant to hold a shocking amount, especially at night, 4 to 6 cups. Okay, so another thing that's not normal, you don't have to live with it as a sign of pelvic floor and core issues, is any pain with sex. Okay, that is not supposed to be the case, and it's not something you have to live with. And that can be a nuance of that also. It could be soreness and swelling afterwards. It can be pain with penetration. It can be soreness higher up in the abdomen. So even that has its own nuances. Another thing is pressure and heaviness. And if you felt this, you know how disconcerting and upsetting it is. This is something I've dealt with quite a bit personally, and it is a terrible feeling because it's almost like the end stage of pregnancy. Like, why is it feel like something trying to fall out and you're not pregnant? You hadn't been pregnant in a while. Some women describe it as feeling a bulge down there, or like a tampon is stuck or inserted wrong. That is all signs of actually something that's a little progress past just pelvic floor dysfunction, which is into the area of prolapse, which is where those pelvic organs start to kind of shift and fall out of place. But it's just like next level pelvic floor issues. It's all connected. It's all part of the same dysfunction. And last but not least, pain or tightness chronically with your back and hips. That pelvic floor connects, those muscles connect to your tailbone. So if things are pulled or too tight or too weak or loose, it's going to yank right on that low back or cause your hip flexors to overwork for core and pelvic floor muscles that don't remember how to do their job. So other muscles are trying to jump in and help. So you can get compressed hips, a compressed back. All of that is part of this picture.
Just sorry, I'm laughing because I'm like, checking things off as you're like, oh my God, I need help. Like part of why I have guests on is because typically I have my own issues that come up and I'm like, oh, I'd love to learn more about this topic. So
that's why you have a great show, girl, because everything you talk about, I'm like, oh yeah, oh, I need to learn about that. Oh, I need to learn about that.
I swear, I joke around. I'm like, I have had the gamut of perimenopause symptoms, and it's like, whatever, I guess it's helping other people. So I have to just share and hope that women get the support they need.
Girl, pain into purpose. That's you're doing the same thing we're doing. And that's how we stumbled. Jen and I stumbled upon doing this work because it was personal to us first. We were looking for our own healing and our own answers. And what was pitched to us or what we tried wasn't what we wanted or didn't work. So we were like, we got to find a better way. And, in that way, we're blessed that we had the background of being a physical therapist and exercise physiologist to where we had the personal drive to find a new option and another way to treat all this, but also the professional background to feel empowered to go about doing that. So here we are.
Yeah, I love it. And some of the things that you specifically were talking about were like the peeing when you sneeze. That was something that I started to experience in my late 30s. And I was like, what is this? I didn't know what was happening. Some of the pain that you mentioned, I've experienced as well. Vaginal dryness, some painful intercourse, even just feeling like heaviness. Even more recently, I'm like, what is happening? So, I've never had children, but I know obviously a lot of women in our audience have, so that could be part of it. But I was told years ago that I had a tilted uterus. So can you speak to any of that? Like why somebody who has not had children may be experiencing some of these issues?
So there are so many causes over a lifespan that impact our pelvic floor health and wellness. And this is something I love to talk about because it's also very validating for women. Childbirth and pregnancy are the number one, quote unquote, risk factors, right? From a statistical perspective of what can cause these issues. However, our pelvic floor health doesn't start when we may become pregnant or have a child. Our pelvic floor health, along with the rest of our body, tells the story of our lifespan. Right. So many things can impact our pelvic floor health and wellness and function long before any of that gets introduced into our lives. For instance, asthma and chronic coughing is something that, repetitive downward pressure on that pelvic floor for potentially years and decades. That's something my partner Jen has suffered with. And then also chronic constipation. So if you're constantly having to strain to use the bowel movement, all of that is downward pressure. And the muscles, like I always like to say, our bodies are always trying to help us, right? And so the muscles in response to that chronic coughing, asthma, constipation, high impact repetitive sports, for instance, the muscles of the pelvic floor kind of tighten in response to that to kind of guard and help it hold things in. But then over time, or a lifetime of high stress or anxiety, tightening, guarding, squeezing, or a history of sexual abuse or sexual trauma, birth trauma, all of that can cause this reflexive over tightening of the muscle. But an over tight muscle is actually still a weak muscle functionally because the little parts and pieces of the muscle don't line up to be able to contract as it's supposed to when it's over tight. So for so many women, we're actually having to teach stretching and rest and relaxation and lengthening, and then adding that functional strength back in to see positive change and progress. So we need to take that zoomed out holistic approach to get the best results that carry over into daily life, because it is so much more than just, I had a baby.
Yeah. Yeah, clearly, because I didn't have one, like I said, and I've been dealing with this it's happening, like I said, it started really in my mid to late 30s, but just hearing you say some of the potential causes, I'm like, oh, I know when I was a kid, I had chronic constipation. And then, of course, who the hell doesn't have stress nowadays? I've definitely had some stress, and I'm sure there's been some tension.
And many women find us in perimenopause because we all know the hormones change, which changes our collagen. The estrogen drops. My understanding of the numbers I've read is that the estrogen drops by up to about 50% by our 50s. And then with that, the collagen drops. And we like to think of that, we often first think of that as an aesthetic thing. Oh, my wrinkles and my saggy face and knees. But guess what? the pelvic floor and all the organs in there are also soft tissue. So that also loses its bounce back ability. It becomes more lax, more likely to be overstretched and not return to normal. So it loses some of its tone also, aside from all the, the lubrication issues that can come up in that area as well. But so that is a time that very often, even for women who had a little bit of stuff happen, maybe after they had a kid or two, maybe that for many women, the story is I had a child or two and I had that little laugh, cough, sneeze, jump, pee thing, but it wasn't really a big deal. I just ignored it. Often, or many times, the hormonal changes of perimenopause are what push us over the edge into like, oh crap, this isn't just an annoyance anymore. I don't think I can keep living like this. And those issues start to scream a little bit louder and ask for attention a little bit more. And it correlates with all those changes. But the good news is you don't have to live with all this forever. And it's up to each woman to decide, when is it a big enough problem that you want to take some action about it, right? Because that looks different for every woman.
Yeah. And I try to tell women this, like, please don't wait until things are really bad. I mean, all of these symptoms that we experience, like they're whispers that the body is asking for support. And I know for me, yes, like I said, I've been experiencing this, but I haven't really been paying attention to my vaginal health, my pelvic floor. So I'm like, this is a great opportunity. And I am still on the younger side. I'm 42, but having these symptoms, I'm like, oh, I need to like get on top of this because I don't want them to get worse. And a lot of women that come to us, they're dealing with vaginal pain, UTIs. They're dealing with a lot of the peeing. Like they're like, oh, I get up constantly in the middle of the night, and I'm like, that's not normal. So,
and look, UTIs can be remedied and reduced with proper pelvic floor health and support as well. Because I love to talk about this because recurrent UTIs. All right, what do you get when you go to the doctor for that? You get a prediction that they're just going to get worse. You're basically just spend the rest of your life on antibiotics, wrecking your gut health, which we know how important that is. The alternative is strengthen that pelvic floor, that undercarriage, get that up and in support functioning and online again. And then you're going to notice, and make sure you know how to relax the muscles as well. You're going to learn to completely empty your bladder properly again, which means you're not going to be retaining urine anymore, which means you're not going to have as many UTIs and you're not going to end up stuck on antibiotics forever. All this stuff is incredibly connected, and it doesn't have to be just this like, downward spiral. When you start to nudge the body in the right direction, like with the right hormone support or the right nervous system support, we give the body that gentle nudge it needs to do the healing that it already wanted to do for us. And it's amazing the upward spiral that you can start with this, as well as so many other aspects of our health.
Yeah, I love that. And I like that you spoke about the hormone piece because obviously that's my shtick and what I educate women on so much. And as we do lose estrogen specifically, it really does affect that area. But like I often say to women, it's not just your hormones. There's a lot that goes into midlife health. And talking about this, I think is fascinating because most people are not getting this information when they go to their doctor. And I'm not knocking doctors. It's just that they only know what they know. That's why we have specialists.
Say that all the time. They know what they know and they don't know what they don't know. And they're given 5 minutes with each patient nowadays. So they, even with the best of intentions, they're often, like you said, they don't know what they don't know, and they're not given the time to really treat people as whole people anyway. And so, I don't ever, not ever trying to throw providers under the bus. I believe everyone gets into the healing professions because they care and they want to help. But a lot of times nowadays, we have to look outside the system to get the care that we need.
Yes. Absolutely. I often joke around with my clients. I'm like, when you're in midlife, you need a whole healthcare team. And that is a coach, a pelvic floor specialist. I'm going to throw that, chiropractor, whatever. And obviously you have to find, what exactly you need because we are all unique. We don't all have the same exact issues. But yeah, we need support. There's no way around it.
Girl, I couldn't agree more. And I find that my team just kind of grows little by little but here's once you break out of that paradigm of reactive care and turn to that more proactive approach, and you see how good you can still feel by taking that one extra appointment and keeping that other provider in your care team, and you're like, wait, it can be like this again. I can feel this good again. It's amazing how motivating it is to stick with those changes because the alternative is not acceptable. It's the life in our years more than the years in our life, right? We want to be there to keep functioning strong and well and not have our travel or our ability to lift and move and bend and get up and down limited. And part of that is counting on your pelvic floor and your core.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's such a paradigm shift that needs to happen. And it is happening. I really do believe that, women and right now like are wanting more support, are not just accepting, the fate that maybe their parents had or grandmothers. I mean, I look at my mom and she's in her 70s and she didn't know any of this stuff. Like nobody told her about it. There was no education. And now she's asking me, like, oh, should I have been on hormones? And what about this? And it breaks my heart because she didn't have these resources available to her. But now we do. So there's really no excuse, ladies. If you are not feeling your best, like you are a priority. And I know that's hard for women, especially moms, because they're taking care of everybody else. But when your health is not optimal, you just cannot be the best mother, the best partner, the best business owner that you can be.
Absolutely. And you said that so well. For so many of us women, we're even more motivated to invest in ourselves when we think about the impact it's having on our loved ones and the relationships that matter most and how we're showing up in those roles. And then we realize, and I'm speaking from experience, all the women we work with, it's fascinating to me what that tipping point is for women to take action on these issues. And it is unique to each woman, but so often it wasn't when it inconvenienced her. It was when it impacted how she was showing up in her relationships with others.
Yeah.
And that can be the straw that breaks the camel's back of like, wait, I need to take action on this. And I love what you said earlier about let's take action sooner than later. We have so many free teachings on YouTube that go deep dives into all of these topics that we've talked about, the stuff you're kind of scared to Google. We go into it. I promise. There's a long form teaching on it. And the comments under those videos on that very public platform are gut wrenching. They'll bring tears to your eyes because women are pouring their hearts out going, why did no one tell me? I feel blindsided by all of this. I thought I was the only one. I thought I was broken. And so just to feel like you're not alone restores that sense of hope. And to know that it just doesn't have to be like that. You can change your story, and please do take action to change it sooner than later, because if you value conservative care and a non-surgical approach, you will be much better served acting sooner than later, because there is a point after which conservative care is not enough.
Yes.
And we encounter those women regularly, and our heart breaks for them. And we just think, gosh, I wish you would have reached out sooner, or they didn't know. Thankfully now, like you said, there are resources, there's education, and you can take those steps sooner than later once you know.
So you were just talking about how women often take action when their relationships are affected. So I would love to talk a little bit more about how your pelvic floor and whether, if you have a weak one, how that affects your intimacy. I believe that we can have really good sex as we age. I believe that we can have really great orgasms, and that we don't have to just settle for that vaginal dryness, the pain with intercourse, and disconnection, because that really is what it comes down to. And I mean, I know that a lot of women struggle in this area, and then it does affect their relationship. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you brought up all these different variables, because when it comes to the dryness, that is much more of a hormone related situation. I know you had a recent guest who had some really great resources specifically for that. So I would say turn to that expert on that particular issue. However, pelvic floor dysfunction specifically does present in several nuanced ways when it comes to pain or just decreased pleasure with sex. And now we have had women join and work with us in our signature program for pain with sex. But what's interesting is that we don't have women join and work with us to improve their pleasure, but they then come back with their hands in the air screaming and so excited that that did happen. So that, not surprisingly, the pleasure of the orgasm is created through the muscles contracting. And if the muscles are weak, guess what? It's going to be kind of like, wah, wah, like, meh. Well, that's not exciting. That didn't feel that great. It's not how I remember it used to be when I was younger. So pain with penetration very often has to do with over tightening of that muscle. And it can be a neurologic connection with a past trauma as well. So that's something to seek care for from an expert in that realm of therapy. But aside from re-triggering a past trauma, pain with penetration is often much directed to that over tight pelvic floor. And so we have a free technique that we recommend for all women to start with. If you remotely suspect you might have an over-tight pelvic floor, is our at-home decompression position. And that is just going to be an anti-gravity position that you get in with no equipment required. And that just take the pressure off your back, your hips, your pelvis, your pelvic organs, your pelvic floor, and your nervous system. So if you are a high achiever and you like to multitask, this is rest multitasking. You are doing so much good for your body by getting into this one decompression position. So and that connects back to that pain with penetration, because that's often an over tight pelvic floor. Lay in that position, that at home decompression. If you are dealing with, like, it can be a nuance of that is not so much pain with penetration, but pain higher up in the lower abdomen, almost like a deep, achy soreness. That often results from when you've had some of that shifting of the organs start to happen, that prolapse. So where something's literally getting impacted in there that shouldn't or didn't used to be physically impacted with sex. And so again, use that decompression position. But then if you really want to get past that, you want to add more functional strength to get everything lifted back up and in and supported again. And again, with that functional strength comes increased sensation and much improved orgasm as well. Now, another separate issue that many women report and that I've experienced personally is swelling and soreness afterwards. So maybe it's not painful during, but you're like, wait, why am I like kind of puffy and achy and sore down there? Or that heaviness or pressure increases afterwards for like an hour or more. That again is often an indicator of some initial stages of either at least weakness and dysfunction, potentially even some beginning stages of that prolapse or those organs starting to shift out of place, because things just aren't quite where they used to be. And they may be like a plunger suction effect happening. And it might just be maybe not the right blood flow or some abrasion happening. Get in that decompression position afterwards. And when you're ready, work with us or someone else you trust to rebuild that functional strength, because it is that up and in lift that the muscles are missing to be able to tolerate all of that with maximum pleasure and no pain.
That sounds amazing. Oh, after we get off of our call, I'm going to go download that and start doing
Yeah.
exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, who the hell doesn't want to improve their orgasms and pleasure? I mean, hello, midlife. I'm like, I want to feel good all the time.
Yes. And it makes sense when you retone the muscle. Guess what
Mhm.
also gets better in addition to less leaks and
Yeah.
less getting up at night to pee? Guess what also is going to get better? So it's again,
Yeah.
it's that upward spiral.
Yeah. I love it. It's very empowering. Yeah. When we
Absolutely.
start to actually learn about our bodies and all the ways that we can actually support it, I find it to be very empowering.
Absolutely.
You spoke a little bit about prolapse. So can you kind of revisit that in that? What exactly is it? What are the symptoms? Is it similar to what we already spoke about? How common is it? Do women get diagnosed improperly?
Yes, this has so we get so much questions about this because there's so much terminology also around prolapse. All it means is, we have bladder, uterus, and rectum nestled up in that bowl of the pelvis, right? And they are in the kind of little compartments, but it's all soft tissue partitions that separate and hold all that in place. So again, if you've been through either Oh, another risk factor I forgot to mention earlier is loose connective tissue. So if
Mhm.
you are a hypermobile person or you have a connective tissue disorder, you're at risk for some of this as well, aside from all the injury and stuff and predisposing factors we already talked about. So it just means one of those organs is kind of lost their proper home. It
Okay.
might be kind of pressing down and into one of the other areas that it kind of shouldn't be resting in. That's where that feeling of the bulge comes in. It might
Mhm.
be the rectum pressing kind of into the vaginal canals area, not through it, but nestling up too close and smushing something out of the way where it shouldn't have been, or it might just be falling kind of straight down. And there are stages of prolapse, and so many women go and report once you get the courage maybe to seek help from a medical provider. So many women are dismissed. I mean, and I know this from personal stories, but I know this from all the women, the thousands of women we interact with who share their stories with us every day. They are shamed, they are dismissed, they are invalidated, they are told it's just what happens all the time. It's
Yeah.
crazy how much this is happening. And or they're misdiagnosed.
Mhm.
That's part of the invalidation of like, something's wrong with my body. I got up the courage to bring this to you. And now you're telling me it's not that bad. Like, I'm telling you
Right.
it's that bad. It's
Yeah.
impacting my life. So again, you know your body best. And so that whether or not you have a diagnosis, whether or not you even want a diagnosis, we have
Mhm.
another free resource we put together based on our research where we tested the protocol we now offer online. It's a 5-minute quiz. And this is an incredibly empowering option for any woman who's like, wait, where am I falling with all this on the spectrum of how bad is this? I'd really like to know. And I'd really like to know which of these issues I'm dealing with are actually all connected. So that is a 5-minute quiz you can do for free, and you get a score, and it is based on the data in our research. And it allows us to tell you with confidence which zone you fall into to set your expectations for how bad is this and what can I do to get better.
Mm.
And we're going to be honest with you. And it's data. It's not, the questions are personal, don't get me wrong, but it's all database. So we'll tell you, okay, you're in the really lower scoring zone. You can take the right action and feel much better in 30 to 60 days. Or if you're on that higher progressed part of the spectrum, we're going to tell you that too, and refer you to a lot of in-person care providers who we've found to support women well. Hopefully you're not into that stage yet, but this quiz will, without having to have an invasive exam, categorize you into one of those zones to really help you discern what are my options now.
Yeah, I found it to be really helpful. I took the quiz myself and I was like, oh, I have a lot of these symptoms. I'm like, this is a perfect timing. um, so, one of the things that I mentioned earlier when I was introducing you is that you like to help women with all this without Kegel exercises or invasive devices. So can you tell me, why are you not fans of Kegel exercises? Because you always hear about people needing to do them. And what invasive devices specifically do you find can actually be harmful or maybe not work in the way that they're supposed to for women?
Yes. And I think it's just a matter of good, better, best. When you know better, you do better. Right. And so I think Kegels have been recommended for so long because it's all anybody knew, and grabbing at straws to do something helpful here. But when you think about it from a muscle physiology standpoint or a muscle training standpoint, if you've ever exercised to build strength in any muscle ever, you know that the method you use is not squeeze, relax, squeeze, relax. That doesn't even make any sense, right? It's not, it doesn't translate into strength in the whole range of motion of the muscle. So for instance, if you're lying down and just squeezing and relaxing, chances are when you're at a deep squat picking up the laundry hamper, those muscles didn't get strong in that range of motion because that's not where you were working. So, and not only they need the rest and relaxation and stretching, and then they need functional strength that's built through movement incorporated with activation, right? I hope that makes sense. It's a little abstract for some, but when you think about it as translating into function, it makes sense. If you squeeze in one position only, that's the only position you're going to get really stronger in. And then oftentimes women have tried Kegels, and not surprisingly, the ones who find us have already tried that, didn't work. So they did the Kegels, maybe it got better for a little while, but then it just got worse. And that's because it's creating that over tight muscle. All that bracing is just over tightening. And again, an over tight muscle is not a strong one. It is a different form of weakness, is how that presents in daily life. And so a lot of the devices are basically just Kegels on steroids. Like they're adding electrical stimulation to even further spasm the muscle, or force it to contract in that one position. And so it's every woman to decide what feels right for them, So if you have, a lot of women are like, well, I tried one of those things and it worked great for me. That is awesome. Then you don't need us. That's, thank God there's so many options out there. But for a woman who's either tried Kegels or just intuitively, it doesn't make sense to them, didn't work for them, or for a woman who has a history of either abuse sexually or birth trauma and not wanting to penetrate their body with any device anyway, or have an invasive exam, or is looking to just heal holistically through more functional means and a really comprehensive approach getting to the root cause. That is where working with us in our signature program is a perfect fit. And it can be done digitally, which is another huge win for a lot of women where childcare is an issue, or even accessibility to a specialist is another issue.
Yeah, that is such an issue. Just accessibility to really good healthcare.
Yes.
We see it often with our clients. I mean, even just getting a doctor to prescribe hormone replacement therapy. I mean, it's such a challenge for so many of them. And then many of them just prescribe and they really don't know much about it. So it can be really frustrating for women. So that's why, I do what I can here to bring guests like yourself on who can speak to this. And I love that you have an online program. I think it's such a great, listen, online and social media can be really stressful, but I also think it's such a gift in a lot of ways. So I choose to look at the positive.
It's a huge gift. And it's really, it blows my mind every day. We didn't set out to do this. It just kind of happened where we were looking for healing for ourselves. It was working in person. we did the research, which in hindsight was like crazy undertaking because we were just like, we've got to get this out there into the world and turn it into data. But we did it. It's published in a peer-reviewed journal. It's so awesome.
Wow.
But then it was the women in our research who came back and were like, I need to refer like 5 women I know to this, like, but they don't live here. You've got to make videos. And we were like, we need to listen to these women.
Yeah.
And that's where the online business was born. And it blows my mind all the time, the emails we get from women who we've never met or connected with in person at all, and who are just like, I had given up. I thought this wasn't possible for me. I didn't know I could live normally again. I mean, I get emotional every time I start thinking about it because it's truly incredible the way we're able to support women around the world in healing in such a vulnerable place and a vulnerable way. But it's amazing how simple it can be when we just give the body that nudge it was looking for anyway. It really, our bodies are meant to heal and they're made for it. And we just have to learn to work with them.
Yeah, I love that. Can you give us like some practical tools? I know you have the quiz and you have that exercise that I said I'm going to download and do myself, but what are some practical tools that women listening right now can start to implement to start to strengthen their pelvic floor?
Yes, absolutely. The first step is for most of us in today's day and age is actually to decompress and relax and release the muscle. So that is where that at-home decompression comes in before you try to build strength. Like many things, and I've heard you say this with other guests, slow down to speed up is the most effective method for healing this area of the body. So start with that decompression position and start with other kindnesses you can do to your pelvic floor every day, many times a day, are using a squatty potty, a toileting stool. I mean, think about how many times, again, peeing, pooping, and penetration, right? How many times a day are we peeing and pooping? Let's do it in a way that's kind to our pelvic floor, which means using a toileting stool for both peeing and pooping puts your body in a more ergonomic position for passive and complete emptying of both bladder and bowel. So we've got those knees elevated on that toileting stool, and we're making sure we're not pushing the pee out. This is like a common thing that many women are doing, trying to shave off a few seconds. Here's what
guilty as charged.
Most of us are, or like, we're either moms, we're clinicians, we're teachers, and we need every second we can get. But when we try to push it out, it actually causes retention, which means we're going to be visiting the bathroom again sooner, or we're going to be more likely to be getting up at night to pee. Peeing should be passive. Put those knees up, or those feet up on the potty, and try to breathe and relax through it. If you have trouble initiating the stream of urine, or if you stand up and a little bit dribbles, or if you pee and then you just have to go back and pee again later, all of that's telling us that muscle's over tight and it's not emptying completely or peacefully as it could. So get in that decompression position. Continue using that squatty potty. Make sure you're not pushing. You can breathe and exhale as you both pee and poop. You can even rock side to side if that helps to ease movement. You can circle back and forth on the toilet. Another thing, proper hydration and fiber. I mean, how many times have I heard you talk about this? So wins, simple, low-hanging fruit wins. But when you've got that stool consistency optimized where it's not too hard and not too soft, there's less downward pressure on your pelvic floor every time you poop. What a win, like a huge win. And then electrolytes, adding those electrolytes to your water when you're drinking is going to help your body make better use of that water. So you're going to have to drink less of a volume of water to have your tissue well hydrated and your poops well hydrated. All of that is a kind and gentle gift to your pelvic floor, lying in that decompression position 10 minutes a day if you can, or every other day. Set a goal that feels reasonable. Another thing is just to listen to your body. So many of us have been, because we've heard, oh, well, your mom had this, or all my friends have this, or your doctor themselves said, this is normal. What do you expect? We stop listening to the signals our own body is giving us because they've been invalidated enough times. So now is the time to tune back in. If an exercise you're doing, or even something that you're wearing, shoes or compressive garments around your waist, if anything that you're wearing or exercising or doing is resulting in an increase in any of those symptoms, we talked about that whole list, the back and hip tightness, the downward pressure, the leaks, the urgency, that is your body trying to wave the white flag and be like, girl, I am not in shape for this right now. Pelvic floor is not up for this. Please. It doesn't mean never. Doesn't mean you can never do those things again. It means please right now. That is your core and pelvic floor saying, can we pause this, please? Because if you keep doing this to me, it's not getting better from here.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's crazy how us women push. We
Yeah.
push our bodies to the extreme, and we're not always kind to ourselves. So, and yes, I want to reiterate what you said, slow down to speed up. I do say that a lot, and I know it could be really annoying for a lot of women to hear, because especially in midlife, it's like you're raising kids, you're dealing with aging parents, you're dealing with your own changes that are happening. And most women are working nowadays, whether it's their own business or they're working for somebody else. So you're just like, you want me to slow down? Like, no. And I'm just looking at them like, mm-hmm,
Yes,
you
because well, we
can.
have to.
You have no choice.
I was
Your
about to
body
say
will make you.
I was about to say if we fight it long enough, well, it'll be forced upon us, and it'll be uglier if that's how it has to go down. And start small. Start with
Mhm,
5 minutes, 10 minutes. I love one of your recent guests talked about even if it's just in the carpool line, if that's the only stillness you can give yourself, sit
mhm,
in the carpool line and don't get on your phone and turn the radio off and breathe.
mhm,
Just breathing actually breath work helps your pelvic floor also. And that
mhm,
we teach breath work with that decompression position because it's rebalancing pressure through the entire whole, abdominopelvic cavity. The diaphragm's the top of that system, the pelvic floor is the bottom.
mhm.
So start with breath work in the carpool line if that's where you need to start with your slowdown. If that's the only thing that feels achievable, you are worth it and it is worth it. And when you start to tip that scale in that direction, you'll be more motivated to make another small change because you'll realize
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god, I needed that."
Mhm. Yes, I love it. Those small wins, like you said. And if anything, if what you take away from this episode is that you deserve to feel good, ladies. You do not need to be suffering. And don't wait till you have so many symptoms. Any symptom is something that you should take care of and try to improve so that you can have quality of life. Thank you. This has been incredibly insightful. It was a really fun conversation. I loved everything that you shared. I know that my community will benefit from this. So, where can women learn about you?
Girl, we're everywhere. We like I said, we do the deep dive teachings on YouTube, so you can find us there. We're on Instagram at tighten.your.tinkler. We're Tighten Your Tinkler on YouTube. Of course, we're tightenyourtinkler.com. And you can find our 5-minute quiz at all those places. And you can find our decompression technique. I'm sure we'll have the link in the show notes, but it's also on our resources page on our website where we've got all the freebies there for you as well. And you can start trying to piece together your own personal puzzle of where am I and what's my chart, help me chart my course to relief.
Right. I love that. Thank you so much. I'm going to put all of those links in the show notes. So be sure to check those out. Thank you for hanging with me today. And we'll see you next time, ladies.
Thank you, Claudia.
Hey, before you go, if you want to know the 10 things that I do every day to improve my energy, mood, and maintain a healthy weight in perimenopause, grab my free resource, Perimenopause Daily Checklist, via the link in the show notes. You'll learn my daily morning and evening rituals, how I reduce overwhelm and get stuff done, how to structure meals to feel good, and much more. Perimenopause doesn't have to be such a struggle. Let's flip the script so you can feel and look your best. The information provided is for educational and informational purposes only. I am not, nor do I act as a doctor or any other medical professional. I am not providing healthcare, medical services, or attempting to diagnose, treat, prevent, or cure any physical, mental, or emotional disease or condition. The information shared is not intended to be a substitute for the professional medical advice provided by your own medical or mental health provider.